Okay, next subject is to understand this very basic code that we've written for our lab calculation is printing and f-strings. And f-strings are something we use a lot, and it's going to be used again and again. It's a very convenient way to combine variables and your own strings in print statements. And this is really useful to format strings and prints in a nice informative way. So for example here, if we have a gene called BRCA1 and we declare this gene with this variable here, so gene will have this value BRCA1, but we can change it later if we want to. And then we want to print this out. We want to say this gene is contains this value. It's quite awkward to do this. You can just sort of concatenate this somehow or things like that. But to combine these things in one string, you do it very simply by putting an F here in the front. And then you can write your normal string that you would print. And for the variable, you just put the variable in between these curly brackets here. And that works very well. This is a relatively new feature that was introduced in Python 3.6, but it's very useful, and we use it a lot to just provide information in our outputs in our program to tell the user what the program is doing and things like that. And we have a lot of variables in programs, and we want to display them combined with more information, and the f-strings are really useful. So you can go through these examples here, and then change it, for example. So here we want, if we change here the gname to ATR, for example, it will now print out ATR and things. So this is quite useful. If you have many different print statements with the same variable, you only need to change the variable once, and you can include them in providing different information in the output. Then another thing that, to provide nice informative output that is worth remembering in prints is formatting numbers. And here are several examples. So if you have, often in science, when we divide things or do things, we get this massive long floats with many, many decimals. And if you want to round this up and only show the two decimals here, we use this notation. We put concentration and then a colon and then dot 2f would give us rounded to two decimals. And here we round to 3 decimals if we change that, or to 1 decimal. Another thing in science, we often have this exponential annotation where we use, instead of saying 1 million, we say 10 to the 6th, for example. So we can again decide how many decimals do we want to do this. So if we run this code here, this will be done to 2 decimals. If we change it here to 3, then we get the exponential after the 3rd decimal, for example. And that's kind of it. And we can change also, if we have these relative numbers like 0.875 and we want to express it as percentage, we can use this percent annotation. So there's various ways of formatting this. These are probably the most useful examples. If you go into the Python documentation, you can find a lot more of this, but this is probably enough for this course to remember this here. Again, there as always, there's some practice here. So if you want to do it straight in the browser, practice this to remember the basic syntax of these f-strings. We won't do this now for because of time, but try and do this. Type it yourself. This is the way to remember. And then there's always loads more information in the Colab notebooks that we'll go through in the labs.